By popular request, I am going to address this issue with Maduro and the most recent nonsense out of DC. I wasn't going to, because it's piling on at this point. With what's going on in the world, it's very clear to anyone with any kind of a reasonable intellect what won the day in DC: capitalism or socialism. Pretty clear to see when there were businesses that said, we want to open, none of our employees are sick, our customers are clamoring for us to be open, and DC said, nope, sorry, at the point of a gun, you will be closed, which is what it really is. When they threaten to use the authorities to come in and remove your patrons, if you attempt to defy them, socialism won the day. You see, people think that my opinion is that we should become a socialist country. It's absolutely wrong. We already are one. Have been for quite some time. This just proved it. I even made up my own acronym to describe it. It's called TRAILS. TRAILS. What do those initials stand for? Taxed, regulated, approved, inspected, insured, licensed, secured, and subsidized. TRAILS. Two options for I, two options for S. Many people come and start typing, socialism is government directly controls. Well, guess what? Government does directly control. They don't do the day-to-day operations, because then that would leave them liable. And you can call it whatever crony this or whatever you want to make-believe notion. But this was the big issue with Maduro. Supposedly he's this evil, terrible, horrible socialist dictator that took over for Chavez, who took control in 2002. Most people don't realize that was not the beginning of socialism in Venezuela. Venezuela has been a socialist country literally from its inception. Going back before World War II, this country financed its day-to-day operation by pumping oil out of the ground, government-controlled, selling it on the open market, taking the revenue, and then providing for its citizens. That has been going on since before my grandparents were born in Venezuela. All they are arguing about is who controls what, where it goes, and what percentage of money goes to the big oil companies. That's the only thing being argued. What they didn't like about Chavez is Chavez said the number one priority of that revenue is the well-being of the people of Venezuela. And big oil didn't like that. And neither did a certain group of people up in New York. Not going to name names, but there's a very delicious candy that you can get that we've talked about, usually at the movie theater, and they don't like it when they lose. That's why they tried to bribe the military. Those of you who are my naysayers about this, who really buy into the government narrative about Venezuela, if it were really so, what they are saying, why would there need to be a $15 million reward? Why would they have had to try to bribe the military? Why would they have had to force aid in and fail doing it? Why would they have had to bribe soldiers to defect and then make these stupid videos? All of the dumbass things they've done over the last 2, 3, 5, 7 years, whatever. I love these stories, especially about the most recent event and that event about the starvation, quote unquote. They show one picture that shows 2 or 3 people that are picking through the trash, and that therefore means millions of people are picking through the trash. Here, same thing, current event. They show a hospital that is busy. Therefore, all hospitals everywhere must be busy. It's insane. It's psychological operations. So many videos saying the same thing. That's why I didn't want to do it over and over and over again. Because it's the same story, same playbook. They never learn. They're never gonna learn that even if everything they said was right, the people of Venezuela are nationalists so far beyond anything we have here in this country that they would never, ever, they would rather suffer under a dictator, even if he was a dictator that would be their dictator, than have some type of U.S. puppet. That's what they don't get in D.C. It's what you don't get if you buy the story, because you have no knowledge of what drives South American and Latin culture. They are very, very proud people. They would rather die than live as slaves. Literally, rather die than live as slaves. Unfortunately, unlike what I'm seeing out of most of North America right now. It's never going to work. If they would somehow succeed in deposing Maduro, they are going to light a fire down there that is going to unite the entire continent. And if DC would ever think about attempting to put any kind of military forces in there, which every single branch of the military, of our military, has told our president, it is a non-starter. It will never work. We can't do it. It'll make Vietnam seem like a backyard argument. There's too many of them. They're too heavily armed. And the dynamic of the region is there would be people coming in from Colombia. There would be people coming in from Brazil. There would be people coming in from all over Latin America to get a shot at the U.S. And that's just the case. And this proves, beyond the shadow of any reasonable doubt, that the leader of Venezuela has the support of his people. Why? Because standing against all of this, he said, I would rather be your leader serving you and meet my end doing that than kowtow to any pressure from D.C. While here in this country, when D.C. says roll over, everybody does. Everybody closes their business. Everybody goes home. Everybody buys the narrative. Everybody lives in fear. And anybody on this platform who stands up and says anything differently, ask Kim Iverson about the amount of redaction. She operates on Twitter. I don't, for this very reason. Because it's much more of a Nazi platform than this is. And she fights it every single day. I don't fight it as much because I have a few other angles, Antarctica, different things that we talk about. If it were up to me, guys, I would do an Antarctica video in the morning and I would record a song at night and that would be it. But if I did that, I would make literally no money. And I wouldn't have the time to be a YouTuber, and that would be that. So I don't mean to sound know-it-all. I don't mean to sound arrogant, but this is what I did in the military. I was a Spanish linguist, Army interrogator. Part of that job, it's a glorified desk clerk 99% of the time. But part of your job is to understand the culture in which you are immersed. To understand the people, how they think, how they believe, how they act. It will never. The reason that we got away with what we got away with in Panama is because we deposed our own guy in Panama. Noriega was a U.S. puppet, and we went down there and got rid of him. So this is all I'm saying. Sorry about that. About this story. It doesn't matter. It's a non-starter. We are as much or more, provably now, a socialist country as Venezuela has ever been. They just operate day-to-day that way. They basically say the day-to-day operations of our country should reflect our number one priority, the well-being of the people. The well-being of the people as a whole. Not businesses, not profit, not making this group of people over here richer and this group of people over here poorer. which is what the U.S. does. And you're seeing that right now. Do you think those people in D.C. give a rat's ass about tipped employees and the amount of money they're losing? Do you think they give a rat's ass about anybody in the gig economy? They don't. Wait until you see the requirements to get your check. Wait until you see the requirements to get your check. And the amount of hoops you're going to have to jump through. It's going to show real clear that they want to get rid of anybody who is making any kind of money that they don't get to dip their filthy little hands into. They don't care. They never have. That's why if it has an R by its name, it has a D by its name, it's the problem. And if you're still buying this crap about Maduro being an evil, terrible, horrible socialist dictator who starves his people and has never won an election, you're a fool. And logic will not register in your brain because you're attaching yourself emotionally to a narrative from a group of people that you value. And nothing I say is going to change your mind about that. And that's just the case. There's nothing you can tell me about Nicolas Maduro that I can't tell you 10 times as much about Colombia and their leaders over the last 40 years. Are we threatening to invade Colombia? And don't get me even started on Peru. You want to talk about corruption? You want to talk about making people disappear? You want to talk about being in bed with the big drug cartels and the gangs? Colombia and Peru wrote the book on it. The guy that's in charge of Peru right now, Martin Vizcarra, is tied directly to the Shining Path, one of the most dangerous terrorist groups that has ever existed. Anywhere. They are a nasty bunch of dudes, and you do not want to cross them. They are hardcore Maoist communists, and I did a whole video series on it about 2 years ago. When the president, first year, he was planning on going to Peru. And I made videos saying the president shouldn't go. The president shouldn't go. This is a dangerous place. Don't go to Peru. Thank God he didn't. Because they're still killing police officers down there. Nicolas Maduro, he's not even socialist enough for most of the socialists in Venezuela. They have read him the riot act about being too moderate. And that's fact. These guys that live out in the country, the campesinos, they have absolutely no use for any kind of neoliberal capitalist nonsense. You get rid of him, you might find somebody who's even more socialist than he is. And it isn't going to be a random guy named Juan. That guy is never going to sit the throne in Miraflores. They will burn the place to the ground before they let that happen. And that's just facts. Regardless of what all these little talking heads in Miami say. They don't get it either. And they're a bunch of entitled, rich, spoiled, rotten babies. And I'm going to leave it there. So, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.